Hello, everyone, and welcome back after our quick lunch break. I hope you are full of food, but hungry for knowledge, and definitely there is a lot of knowledge that we will process during this panel. And I have absolutely fantastic panelists that will talk a little bit about investing in CEE and maybe a little bit about CEE region and how it affects the global investment sector in general. And I gotta admit that it was lovely to speak with them in the backstage, and I'll probably come up with a couple of new panels that we would love to invite them that they can talk more about. But let's focus on the topic for this one. So we have Joanna Nagadowska from Google. We have Wiktoria Wójcik from inSTREAMLY, Rafał Celej from KondrackiCelej, and Marcin Hejka from OTP Ventures. And I guess it will be just fair to give you a little bit time to tell a little bit more about yourself. So maybe start with Wiktoria.
Okay, hello everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'm Wiktoria Wójcik. I'm a co-founder of inSTREAMLY. inSTREAMLY is a company within, let's say, creator economy space that helps streamers to earn money on their passion and everyone who works with them to make this cooperation easy. And I've been running, I am co-founder of the startup since 2019 when we started our operations. And in the last year, we finished 2 funding rounds in total for 1.6 million euro. So I will talk a bit about of my experiences fundraising in being a CEE startup.
Okay, Rafał, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yes, pleasure. Hi, everyone. Pleasure to see everyone. I am a partner at KondrackiCelej, a Warsaw-based boutique law firm that specializes in advising tech startups, Polish tech startups, and Polish and international investors in venture capital transactions. So we have quite a broad experience in from the founders and the startups perspective, but also from the VC's perspective.
Marcin, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself now?
Absolutely. My name is Marcin Hejka. I'm a co-founder and general partner of OTP Ventures. We are a deep tech VC fund investing in post-product, post-revenue companies with links to Central Eastern European talent, meaning companies that have Central Eastern European founder or co-founder, and development or part of it located in the region. So we've been investing for 3.5 years. Really proud of our portfolio. In my previous life, I spent 18 years at Intel Capital, where I started as regional director for Central Eastern Europe and ended as global investment committee member, vice president and managing director responsible for global operations except North America and except China. Where I, on top of managing the team in 8 offices, I was also investing myself, and I'm really proud I was able to invest at that time in 36 Central Eastern European startups, of which 5 became unicorns. Actually, 2 of them became decacorns.
That's really great, and I bet we will talk a little bit more about this later. And finally, Joanna, can you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Sure. Welcome all. Super great to be here with you and in such a great company as well with my co-panelists. So I'm a little bit like connecting all of you. So my role, I'm for over 10 years at Google, and what I'm doing, I'm trying to kind of like bring all the puzzles within Google together and support the best way we can do it startups. So as you can imagine, it's a big organization. We got pieces connected to the education, which is a Google for startups. We got a Google Cloud, which takes care of the infrastructure for companies. And we got also the ads and the whole strategy in terms of the scaling companies globally. So I'm working with those teams internally, then reaching out to the market in Poland, in Central Eastern Europe, and connecting the dots. Same, I'm doing this with the investors. So with, investors locally, but also internationally. The whole idea is to really make sure that the whole ecosystem is, as well prepared for our local companies that we can really make the Central Eastern Europe shine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And before we go to the main part, the questions, I would like to encourage everyone to say hello in the chat. So that would be nice, and obviously write some queries if you find any particular topic interesting, and we can ask them at the end. And as we are here with Joanna, and you already mentioned that Google Cloud, we recently saw that investment that Google makes in Warsaw, but we're talking about investing in CEE. So can you tell us a little bit more when we can expect Google Ventures to show up in our little playgrounds here?
Yes, sure. So this is a tricky question. I mean, you mentioned the cloud, the campus also is here as one of the few locations worldwide. So this is a great thing. GV is actually, entity which it's under Alphabet. So I wanted just to mention that it's also an independent entity. Nevertheless, it covers the entire Europe. So, it doesn't matter even the geo, as long as we got in Poland or in a region, great companies which are competitive in technology, solve an important issue, which both the consumers and the businesses really want to use it. If the company got a strong team and, a global vision, so probably some of the usual criteria which the investors, Marcin, will have as well, that's the way to go. So, I'm really looking forward for, Polish companies which will fulfill that criteria. I hope that sooner or later the GV investment will happen here in the region. A little bit of my role is that I really want to bring this, strong companies in front of the international investors' eyes. So maybe this will also help. So it's a matter of, as quick as we build strong companies, the quicker the investments will happen here.
Yeah, and I bet Wiktoria is from a really strong company. They won Pitch to London last year, so we're really keeping our fingers crossed for them, and would love to see that them on Google Ventures portfolio. But going a little bit to Marcin now, you work in investing for about 20 years now or more. So, and as you said, you had few unicorns and decacorns already. So how do you see the development of that CEE investment scene? Is it like, I know that we're quite far away from China and Silicon Valley yet, although we're doing our best, but are we getting closer to countries like France or Israel and their ecosystem? Are we on the right track?
So I would start with something that might sound a bit controversial. We don't have an ecosystem. So the region and Poland specifically do not exist as ecosystems. And let me explain with defining how I understand the word ecosystem. So basically, the ecosystem is an area where basically, there is all the elements in place, including talent, including investors, including academic and research centers, including all the infrastructure, including legal infrastructure, enabling doing deals, where basically, you have very fast kind of recycling of capital. So basically, you have continuous number of successes, each of those successes creating whatever, 10, 20, or whatever number of people who are rich and who know how to do it and who start from scratch as founding new companies or becoming angel investors or becoming venture investors. And we are very, very, very far away from achieving that. I would say that academic and research world is completely kind of, let's put it, impotent in terms of kind of, helping the technology startup ecosystem. I would say they are very much oriented on getting grants and doing publications rather than anything else. We have kind of, we don't have that many successes. Actually, it is, almost ironic that Poland doesn't have a single unicorn. And by the way, I know there are different definitions of unicorns, but I do not define CD Projekt or Allegro as unicorns, because they didn't go through VC stage of development. So for example, I think Estonia has 4, Belarus has 2, Czechia has 4 unicorns. So it seems like if we look specifically at Poland, it looks pretty bad. And I would say that the problem is that the ecosystem, we have amazing talent. I would say that in the region and in Poland specifically, we have some of the best engineers, some of the best developers on the planet. And once again, it's very difficult to kind of to quantify quality of talent, but I believe there are some ways of doing this, and happy to comment if needed. But I think at this point of time, Poland and the region are world champions in wasting talent because of the lack of the ecosystem. So basically, we have the region actually is to a large extent a source of cheap labor to others because of lack of sufficient number of successes and lack of sufficient volume of capital that is capable of providing funding and providing value add to turn those opportunities into massive successes. And I believe it should be absolute priority for anyone here, for every investor, for every entrepreneur, also for the government to try to change it. Because you can build the ecosystem in relatively short time if you do the right things. And I would say China and Israel, I think the US ecosystem or the Silicon Valley ecosystem were created kind of, as the first ones, sort of naturally. They created this circulation of capital. They created this kind of, chain reaction that is taking them again and again at the higher level. Israel did it within roughly 10 years with actually, as a result of really conscious and well-designed policy. China, has built the ecosystem in relatively short time, using a high level of protectionism, which is probably not the right way, but it really worked well in their case. Here, I think, it's a bit disappointing to see that we have a lot of talent still kind of, doing sort of kind of bottom of the food chain jobs instead of kind of moving higher and building proprietary products. We have relatively few successes. And by the way, I do not want to take anything away from the successful startups who are really doing absolutely great job. But I would just say that I wish they were successful because of the support of the ecosystem they are part of. I think at this time, successful companies are actually successful despite the lack of existence of the proper ecosystem. And, I could probably talk for hours about it, but let me stop here. I would like to encourage discussion.
Yeah, and obviously we will come back to a few points that you mentioned, but maybe go a little bit from the different perspectives. So I know that Wiktoria closed around for last year and this year as well. So you had the support from Smog Ventures last year, and this year you raised with investors from the UK and Japan, which obviously is very impressive, especially in the time of pandemic. So can you tell us a little bit more about that, and maybe also ping pong that discussion and see if you see that support from Polish investors and trying to build that ecosystem?
Yeah, I started thinking about what you can call an ecosystem, what makes an ecosystem actually, what do we expect from CEE. One thing for sure that you would expect is that if you start with a local, let's say, Polish fund as a company, then if it's an ecosystem, you expect this fund and other funds to help you out with growing out of this ecosystem. And I think it's also interesting because we compare ourselves to Silicon Valley, but in Silicon Valley ecosystem, the point is, if you are a company in Silicon Valley, you are basically expected to grow a company within Silicon Valley and maybe in US, and maybe in a couple of years you can be a unicorn in US and then go expand to other countries. And on the other hand, so this is an ecosystem within one country. And on the other hand, we say that in CEE we don't have an ecosystem, and then we expect all of the companies that they will not be a unicorn building in Poland. They have to go out, they have to search for money, search for clients, and expand to other markets. So I think it's a bit unjust to compare ourselves to Silicon Valley. And maybe I'll also explain why. I think, and then go back to our round. But what I learned during this round, that a lot of buzz is around the ecosystem of Silicon Valley and New York, all those things. You read about it a lot and you see them as the cool kids, and you aspire to have a fund from US, you aspire to be noticed by investors there, to be a part of this ecosystem. And because all of us are all this time looking up to some other ecosystem, we are not maintaining how cool we as an ecosystem can be. Anytime you know, if you say about an expert, and this is an expert because he was in Silicon Valley, it's not a valid point. You wouldn't say that you are an expert because you were in some part of the world for some time, and this makes you more awesome than anywhere. So on one hand, I found out with talks with investors all around the world that we look up to other places, not caring about our own place. And the other way around, it's so really surprising that VC funds from US are right now just opening eyes and saying, oh, there are good companies in Europe too. Oh, investing in Europe is so buzz. It's so trendy right now. And we've been here for such a long time. We are doing amazing things. And instead of making our own ecosystem stronger, we are waiting for validation from somebody else. And it works the other way around. We as inSTREAMLY, we raise money from KoloPL and a media tech fund, Supernode Global, and from PKO in Poland. And all of those investments came from warm introductions from smoke. So this is what you would expect from an ecosystem in here, that that your investors will push you and introduce you to other funds. And in the end, we took like 120 calls with different funds, and the warm introductions were the ones that worked the best. So I don't have a lot of stories to tell about this, but the one thing for me was we were chasing a lot of US investors. And in the end, I think it's time for us as a Europe, as CE, to be more firm in what we do and have them chase us.
Okay, yeah, and that's very important point. And to maybe emphasize a little bit more about that, Rafał, you worked on multiple rounds with different startups, and you definitely see like every single of that round is changing our perspective and perspectives of other countries about what can be achieved in CEE and in Poland. So do you still see any superstitions when you're working on a particular international deal with startups and investors from abroad?
Sure. Superstitions, I wouldn't say, because obviously we started being recognized, maybe not that much globally, but at least within Europe. So it's not that they don't really know what to expect. But I would say touch upon a little bit what Marcin said about part of ecosystem. Our regulation is not keeping up the pace with the changes of the modern world and technology and people's exceptional minds and talent. So the biggest issue here is for foreign investors to understand in what kind of companies they're investing. When you look at those companies that in Poland that are very close to being unicorns, like Booksy, like Doc Planner, like all these other companies, they all kind of flip to foreign jurisdictions. So all these investors are investing in foreign companies, established in Poland, flipped. So they know what to expect from the regulation, tax-wise, court-wise, dispute-wise. And it's very difficult for really good Polish companies to attract foreign investors to invest in a Polish legal structure. I mean, there are very few. For example, Tilko is one of the great examples of attracting top sophisticated investors in round C, and they still have a structure in Poland. So this is one point. So we need to change our regulation. We need to be investor and startup friendly. When you look at Estonia, Marcin again said, for unicorns in Estonia, they have, obviously, they are a smaller country, more agile. They can change the regulation much faster. But this is a fantastic example in our very close border, that it's possible. Everything is digitalized. Everything is quick, efficient. You don't have to fly from, the States to Estonia to set up a company. Everything happens instantaneously. In Poland, it's a little bit more complicated. You have all those different notarial forms, tax issues, etc., etc. This is complicated. So I wouldn't say superstitious, but there are intricacies that make rounds with foreign investors very difficult.
Okay, I see the comments that words of agreement with Marcin's points, and you Rafał mentioned something very important, that legal support and evolution, and but it always comes from the decisive part. So decisive party. So like that governmental part of this whole process. So like.
Yeah,
I would be really interested in finding out if, Marcin, do you feel any support for that Polish investors who are actually willing to risk their money and trust in those crazy but very talented entrepreneurs that want to change the picture of CEE?
I would say that the answer is yes. We see quite some activity, related to supporting, for example, VC funds. But I would say that it's probably based on the assumption. My perception is that the understanding of the VC ecosystem is that it's kind of a cool ecosystem, everyone does it, so maybe we should too. So let's try to do something, and execution is probably, could be way better. And I can comment on that as well. But I don't think there is a clear understanding on the side of the government. The understanding that I clearly see on the side of government of Israel or Estonia, or let's say even Romania, that actually there's no more important thing than development of entrepreneurial technology ecosystem in the country. Because if we think about it, actually, the changes that we see kind of, in global economy that continue are very, very well, are very easy to identify. So in 21st century, every country has a choice to be a source of cheap labor or to be a source of innovations. And another very simple rule that is clearly visible everywhere is that ability to create innovations is absolutely correlated with development of the VC ecosystem. There's always, in every country on the planet, you see correlation between kind of innovativeness of the economy, structure of GDP, structure of employment, structure of exports, and development of the VC ecosystem. And I think, what I would do is I would be way braver in encouraging development of the ecosystem, because current structure is basically, encouraging, startups to kind of to run away, to disconnect from the ecosystem. And when technically, let's say Polish investors, instead of building value for the economy, they are basically turning into sort of feeders of the of the opportunities from the region to investors from other countries that ultimately take all the benefit. So this is kind of, this is a curse. This is the road to hell. Poland will be doomed to be kind of the source of cheap labor forever if we don't change it.
Yeah, and speaking about that change, we know that in 2019, Google for Startups and Deal Room made a report a little bit about that CEE and startups there and investment. And I know that you are working on a revised version of that. Obviously, a lot has changed, not only in CEE but globally, pretty much everywhere. So can you tell us a little bit more, Joanna, about that report?
Of course, before I jump into the report, which is work in progress, so just few facts which kind of like we came up with, I'm able to reveal, but super cool discussion. So thank you for the contribution. Marcin, I do agree with the ecosystem stage. I partly, or ourselves as Google, we partly address because we're part of the ecosystem. So we do our best to really kind of like listen to the startups and all the time address the needs and tailor-made some, educational and other programs. But of course, I think the biggest kind of like thing is if we put our kind of like hands together and work jointly on the success of the companies. That's I guess also work in progress, by the way. And Wiktoria, totally agree with you that my dream is as well to really make sure that the world comes here rather than we kind of like go out there and change the administration of our companies and claim that we're the San Francisco-based company rather than Polish, etc. Anyway, the Deal Room report, so in a few months probably out there already, but interesting fun was that speaking about actually community here based in London, as that's the region of the event we in. Just imagine we counted out that amount of the startups in Central Eastern Europe, so I'm talking right now about the entire region, it's actually almost same as London one. So this is a quite cool. And we also calculated the cumulative combined value of the startups in the Central Eastern Europe. And it turned out that within 7 years, it increased the value 35x times. So just imagine if you an investor investing in a cumulative CEE startup, your return on investment is at 35x, which is quite exciting. And it's also, for sure, the time to become unicorn, we calculated that it's already like takes 4 times faster. So that's also a very positive message, which is brought to the worldwide investment world. And still, as probably it's not a surprise. The surprise was that 80% of the funding in 2020 came from the international investors. And probably the biggest reason is that the later funds are being initiated by the foreign investors. But once again, this data it's around the entire region. And when I look at Poland, still we missed world recognized investors. I've seen in the last year and this year Axel, Index, Bessemer. Investing all over the Central Eastern Europe. Poland still it's not on a target. Hopefully it will change. We also as Google we look very strongly at the gaming sector, and I think that's also a very interesting fact to know that Warsaw Stock Exchange and New Connect overtook in terms of the game dev South Korea and Japan. We got already 58 companies listed on a stock exchange. So just a few names: it's CD Projekt, it's Huge Games, 11-bit Studio, soon Gamivo. So also very interesting, like strong muscle of Poland in terms of the game dev.
Okay. It's great to hear that like those foreign investors are joining in at the later stage. Obviously, we would love to have both more Polish investors at that later stage and also foreign investors going for a Polish company, maybe even at seed or pre-seed round. So Rafał, when you work on those type of deals, do you see any common problems or common issues that involves involvement of those foreign investors, whether that might be taxation or something else? Maybe the part of the problem with growing that ecosystem lies in that as well.
I mean, I wouldn't call it a problem. I mean, as I said previously, we have a complicated legal structure of investing in companies, and so that's not investors friendly. Nevertheless, we see a big increase of foreign investors investing in Polish companies at an early stage or later stage. So this is changing. So I think the best founders and the best companies, they don't have to chase investors. The average would probably, but I think Joanna said about Polish investors investing abroad. I think that's a big issue in Poland, because when you look at the number of Polish funds, most of them are government backed with PFR or NCB or some other programs, and they have their limitations, and they cannot invest directly in foreign companies. There has to be kind of Polish nexus. They do all those weird structures with investing in Polish subsidiaries and then flipping, and this is all complicated. This doesn't make round efficient, quick, and easy, and especially when they're co-investing with foreign investors, that just raises their eyebrows. And it's always difficult for us to explain that it's not, I mean, for us, for Poles, we're used to it. I mean, me as a lawyer, we did several rounds like that, so that becomes normal. But for foreign investors, they struggle to understand why someone has to establish a Polish company in order for the investor to invest in that company, then flip, and why waiting, etc. So there are a lot of questions which just don't make the process efficient. And nowadays there's a big competition on the market. Marcin probably can confirm that. So if you have a great company, you don't waste time. If a round lasts several months or a few months even, it's way too long in that kind of modern world. So I would see this as major issues, but obviously it's going to be very difficult to overcome because all those programs are kind of EU regulated, so it's not going to be that easy.
Yeah. And so going a little bit deeper about that, so there are two types of the VCs in CEE, or maybe Poland specifically, those that know how and know who VCs. And I know that Marcin is definitely that know how, that OTB is in investing in a very complicated deep tech, very like revolutionizing projects. On the other hand, there are more focus at introducing startups to other investors. Like maybe a little bit more smoke is about that, because they also operate in the US. They have the broad of contacts from Bragiel brothers. So Wiktoria, can you tell us a little bit about that support from smoke that was helping you get that second round? And then maybe we will go back to Marcin to hear his voice about that.
So what Smog did for our second round, and it was really helpful. First up, they took we went to Paul Bragiel, who took an associate from his other fund to just send a lot of intros and deck to like a list of, I would say, 30 different funds. And also from Boris and Diana, we got a lot of warm intros. They were just like VC talk with each other. This is the thing we learned. This is quite a small industry, so it sometimes we came up in a conversation on, or we were just introduced warmly as a, hey, we got this company, please take a look. So basically that's what they did. With Supernode Global, it was an intro from Diana. With ColoPL, I'm not sure, I think it was from Boris or Paul. But what's important, it's what happened next. And this is a thing you should expect from all your investors. And I also learned that the thing you should expect from all of your investors the most is the help with the subsequent round of funding, because how to, or any smart money in terms of sharing knowledge, networks, all those things, it's hard to quantify. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes you will think you will need it and then you will not ask for it because you get what you ask for. But help for subsequent rounds is really, really important. And what happened once Supernode got into the round, they invested. Phoebe from Supernode took time to really work our pitch deck, and we like changed the narration. I would say 180 nearly, because she knew what VCs want, how they could understand this opportunity the best for us, and this help was really, really important for us. And we are still using it. Generally speaking, with investors, you get what you ask for, apart from when somebody says no to you and then asks how they can be helpful. Usually they sometimes don't respond even if you say how they can be helpful. But this happens and you shouldn't expect more. In the end, it's a business. You expect money from investors. They can help you out. They want to help you out. They believe in you. But don't expect investors to do your work for you. But I am mostly sure that we wouldn't get investment from Japan, from UK, without the warm intros from Smoke. Maybe we would, but it would take us some more time. So one thing I would really work on in CEE is making sure that the companies within Europe are really visible, because it sometimes was like we couldn't get a way to be visible, to be on the radar of those companies, and ensuring a way to be on the radar, I think would be helpful for those who are not who do not have a first pre-seed investor who can help them out with outreach.
Yeah, and Marcin, like similar question for you, because like the portfolio of OTB is very focused on those deep tech, complicated companies. So can you tell us a little bit more about your strategy and your way of helping those companies? Because obviously it's not only about money. There is a reason why VCs are called smart money. So we would love to hear a little bit more about that.
So maybe if I may, one quick comment to some, to the kind of examples of successes and the numbers we heard before. So to put things in perspective, because the same numbers might be presented as a sign of strength, but it's the same numbers, if you look at them from perspective, they might look as absolute failure. And looking at VC data statistics, I'm crying, basically, when I'm looking at VC statistics in Poland. So despite, 2020, for example, despite being the record year, and despite being kind of, absolutely significant year-on-year growth, we are getting close to deal volume comparable to what Israel does in 6 weeks. So this is number one. It put things in a little bit of perspective. The second thing, 53% of the volume were foreign funds. And actually, if you look more specifically, Polish investors were taking all the risk pretty much, pretty much doing all the kind of long tail risky opportunities. As soon as they become kind of like investable, kind of, at reasonable level of risk, they're taken over. And what is the benefit of the ecosystem by kind of getting rid and losing all those opportunities so early? Take a look, what Israel did. There is an ecosystem that on the one hand is able to take early risk, but at the same time, they can keep supporting companies over multiple stages of funding using local investors and local capital. Building a company is a marathon, not a sprint. And the strategy of basically taking all the risk and then giving it up to whoever from abroad, whoever wants to touch it, is kind of, is absolutely suicidal. And this is what I believe has to really change in terms of mentality, and very good illustration of what is impact of it. Investors, founders are, is not the only group that has to do fundraising. Venture investors need to do it too. And actually, there are some investors who need to do it and who want to do it from other sources than government. And when we did it, for example, Central Eastern Europe was not even on a map. Basically, if you take a look to any fund of funds, to any institutional investor investing in funds in Western Europe or elsewhere, the story you hear is, yeah, we have to be in the US because US has a big ecosystem. We have to be present here. We have to be present in Israel because Israel has a strong ecosystem. We need to support it. And we need to have a certain exposure there. Central Eastern Europe? Are you kidding us? If we want to do, have exposure there, we can do it easily by kind of investing in any Western European tier 2 fund who will have access to all the best deals from the region because all the local funds will bring it to them begging for investments. Where is the success here exactly?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'll see that we're running slowly out of time.
Okay.
Although, definitely next year we need to schedule a 2 hours panel, and we'll do the 2.0 investing in CEE. But I see the query from Łukasz Jabloński, so it's related to what all of you pretty much said. So we've been aware of burdens / obstacles, complexities of the legal system preventing growth companies to be established and developed in Poland for long. Why voices like Marcin's or Rafał's are not heard loudly? Why is it not on political agenda? Why there is little to no lobbying? And I do not know the answer. I would love to hear your opinions or maybe your ideas for that.
I would say that you always have to have the right people in the right place, and sometimes we're missing that. I mean, it's, as I said, regulation doesn't keep up the pace with the changes in lives and technologies, and we need to have people there. I mean, government and all those regulators are a big part of the ecosystem, as Marcin said. They also have to be part of it, an active part of it. They have to listen to each and every voice. Because we are here on the ground, we're working, we're advising. Marcin is investing. Wiktoria is a founder. So we are all there. We can see it. But people who are not involved in that, they just don't see it, and it's not their bad will. It's just the fact that the system is not properly working, I would say.
Okay, and I see another question. So, do entrepreneurs have any influence on lawmakers? And I guess once you get to the certain level of Elon Musk, you definitely can have, but how we can do that here? So
I think the lawmakers focus on what people are talking about. At least in Poland, there is a lot of focus on appealing to the masses. So one thing, if you, for example, compare it to United States, there people are hyped about entrepreneurship, like being an entrepreneur, a new company hitting the charts. And you think it's big news. It's interesting for people. And one of those things is because media are showcasing it. And in CEE, I feel like entrepreneurship, startups are a niche thing that you see on technology-related blogs, in startup-related media, in Forbes. But normal consumers, normal people do not read Forbes. So one way for us as founders, as entrepreneurs to enforce is making entrepreneurship a thing we can be all proud of as a nation, making it more visible, pushing to those, let's say, media outlets, and also for media outlets to change the way we talk about Polish companies, to not only focus on the established ones, on the big hegemons, but also to showcase that Poland or CEE is a way for entrepreneurs, a place for entrepreneurs to grow. And then I think the government, when they see that this is an opportunity to show that the country is going in a good direction, whether it is or whether it's not, they will focus on making those people who are loud enough happy. So we have to be loud.
Okay. Yeah, and I definitely see that we're running out of time, but as you mentioned, Wiktoria, there is need that voice of the people. So I guess I will not be wrong if I encourage everyone to follow you, contact you on LinkedIn, and basically repost everything that they hear about you or the companies that you work for, and maybe even send you some pitches to hear the feedback. That will definitely be a groundwork that might help even a little bit. And so I guess we can all say thank you and for listening. It was fantastic to hear your voices, and we're really great to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.